Hello and welcome to our sixth lesson. Well, you have just seen how modern languages developed with the influence of Latin. Students came and went to and fro, bringing with them their vernacular languages. The use of good command of the language turned a must because of the struggle of philosophy versus theology, legal and theory argumentation, and justification of religious and monarchic authority. Here is the importance of rhetoric, which was one of the liberal arts. You may remember that. A part of the trivium specifically, but what is rhetoric? This is the question for today. Okay, we see in the picture on the screen some kind of definitions. Rhetoric is the art of persuasion, the ability to convince somebody else to take a direction by creating proof. The rhetorician business is not to give instructions in matters of right or wrong, but to create persuasion only to make them believe. Okay, it has to be said that despite rhetoric was mostly oriented to oratory, it also concerns text writing. In that sense, style is a matter of utter importance. Aristotle, however, acknowledged that it is because of the actors and poets who first studied style and delivery by changing their accents, by using loud or low or sharp voice, accelerating or slowing the rhythm of the speech according to the context and subject matter. Well, let's see the next picture. Let me maximize it. Okay. The following tips or requirements aim to achieve the purpose of rhetoric in prose writing. Let's see. Clarity, the first one. The virtue of style is to be clear, since it is the main noun and verbs that make the style clear. They should be decorated by other words. Frigidity says the exotic metaphorical clarity is the supreme merit of style, but the search for it is perilous and often leads into frigidity and flatness. So in order not to fall into frigidity, we must avoid compound names. You see the example there. Using far-fetched words, another example. Using long or untimely or too frequent epithets. Aristotle says that using epithets as meal and not the sauce. This is a very good example, very good explanation. The last one, using inappropriate metaphors because of absurdity or because of its solemnity or its being tragic. Simile, it is a kind of metaphor in which two things are compared. The key word is comparison. For example, the prime minister is like Napoleon with skirts. Sarah is like an angel without wings. You see, two terms are compared, or two words are compared. The next one, amplitude. It is achieved primarily by the substitution of descriptions for names. For example, instead of saying circle, you say edge equidistant from the middle. Okay, you make a description instead of proper name. Let's see the next one. We go on with style and in prose writing. Purity. It is the first principle of good style, since correct use of language is essential to clarity. Linguistic purity is produced by correct use of connectives, use of specific, not general words, avoidance of ambiguity, meeting concordance both in gender and number, and the sentences must be easy to understand. The next one is propriety. It says that it is, along with clarity, the great hallmark of good style. It consists of the precise attunement of expression to content. Persuasiveness is produced if soft thoughts are said in a hard manner and hard thoughts softly. Let's see the examples. It is your weakness of character that makes you special. Okay, on one side you remark something bad about someone, but on the other hand, you're saying, okay, this, what is bad in you is what makes you special. The next sentence, you miss the point and that is why you fail. But this is not your fault. It is all mine. Okay, you're saying to somebody else that this somebody has failed, but at the same time, you are putting the blame on yourself. The next one and last, I know it is hard, but it is not the end of the world. He will always be in your heart and cheer you up in grieving moments. Okay, this is a typical phrase that you say when somebody has gone for good or somebody passed away. Okay, it is a hard moment for the person, but you, by saying something, let's say, by using the right words, you try to persuade that person that this is not the end of the world. That person who passed away, that person who has gone for good, will always be there in your heart and in your thoughts. Next picture. Rhythm. The rhythmic flow of the chosen words also has a notable effect on the persuasiveness and charm of what is being said. Its primary function is to be neither wholly unrhythmical nor full of poetical meter. Aristotle gives some examples of different meters. Iambic foot, the most regular pattern in use, he says. I'm not very sure what the iambic foot consists of, to be honest. Trocake, it is too exuberant because of the use of tetrameter. The one he has chosen to be the best is the paean. Its radio is 1.5/1. That is to say that every 1.5 syllable, there will be one stressed syllable. This is the pattern that has to be used in a proper style to create persuasion. Next one is syntax. It refers to the internal arrangement of sentences. You can either make them extended by the use of copious subordinate clauses with internal unity, or you make them antithetic, he says, by internally dividing its clauses in juxtaposed pairs of opposite. Let's see the examples. The citizens who stood for the new government measures were among the upper class people that only search for their own benefit. And an example of Antithetic would be the government measures were not equally beneficial to both classes of citizens, for the upper class got better off than the lower class. There you see two ways or two manners to say the same thing, but using different patterns of syntax. Let's see the next picture. And last one, I think. So wit and metaphor, even if all of our aspects have been successfully achieved, a sprinkle of wit and good and timely use of metaphor will always season the prose. It's like a condiment or the ingredients that you use when you're cooking. You have to sprinkle the right ingredients over the meal and it will be rightly seasoned. Regarding to metaphors, those that bring out analogy are the ones that hit the target right in the center. Next one, vividness. It is the ability to use the right words to project the picture of a description in others' minds. Okay, let's see the example. An arrow flew searching to hit flesh, but landed yearning on earth. Okay, it brings out the picture of what's going on or what happened into your mind. For that, you need to use the correct words. And the last one, I guess, suitability to gender. Style in writing should be appropriate to each gender. Altercation, politics, litigation, forensic, epic, history, and so many other genders are not the same and should be considered when it comes to writing and style. So when you start writing your prose, you need to bear in mind what is the gender you're writing about. Okay, let's finish with that one, which is our first picture. Okay, you are kindly invited now to read chapter, it's not the chapter, is section 9 of Aristotle Rhetoric, in which you will find these tips or requirements to produce a persuasive writing in prose. That will be very useful for you for the last activity. The last activity, you will find a poem by Oscar Wilde written in prose. You have to read it all the way to the end, and after that you will have to produce a writing of your own, no more than 200 words, giving your recommendations, not recommendations, trying to persuade the nymphs in the poem of the uselessness of crying for the river. Okay, thank you very much. Remember, if you need some assistance or some support, I will look forward for your queries in the queries box. See you there and see you next class. Bye-bye.